Professor Bank, you've put together a report called After Communal Land Rights Act, Land Management, Power and Arrested Development in Rural Eastern Cape. What have you found, perhaps different from what our reporter Busi was talking about?
I think the report pretty much confirms a lot of the things that have been said in the report. I think the biggest issue really in the communal areas is that we discovered is a tension between traditional authorities and elected officials in local municipalities. And this is causing a lot of uncertainty about rural development priorities and how land is used. I think that's probably the most important challenge that we discovered, that land tenure itself needs to be discussed and reformed and revised, but the biggest challenge for rural development exists around the enormous tensions that exist particularly in the Eastern Cape, but also I think in some of the other former homeland areas. We also found broadly in the report nationally that immigration in some of the northern former homeland areas from neighboring Zimbabwe and Mozambique had caused traditional leaders to entrench their authority as people became uncertain about who might acquire the land in a process of immigration. So what I want to say is that in these different areas there are different sorts of dynamics, but the main dynamic we discovered in the Eastern Cape was really the tension between traditional leaders and elected officials.
But the point I'm getting here is that the issue of communal land is as it were, the elephant in the room, the proverbial elephant in the room. Yet there seems to be very little done in the way of coming up with solutions. There's a certain sense of a state of limbo around this area, Professor Bank.
Indeed. I mean, this is a major challenge for an area like the Eastern Cape, which is a predominantly rural province, and the bulk of our successful, let's put it that way, national policies are urban-focused, including housing, local economic development. Some of our successful projects are in the urban areas. And so the question of neglect, some people would even suggest cynical neglect of rural areas in relation to development, is a major issue. And I think a lot of people were anticipating fairly rapid change after Polokwane, where this became an important policy area, and we've been a bit surprised by how slowly issues have moved. And I guess the question really is the challenge. I mean, a lot of the new policy frameworks, existing policies, speak of issues of cooperative governance and management in these areas, and that indeed, as I've pointed out, is a major challenge. But the other problem is the absence of capital wanting to move into these areas, and I think that was also mentioned in your report. To get more capital to invest in rural areas is really a big challenge to try and improve not only services but economic opportunities.
Mm-hmm. In response to that particular issue, the Deputy Minister Lechisa Tsinodi, said that it's the banks that need to change their approach and not necessarily the other way around. Deputy Minister, is that genuine though? Because some may say that's a disingenuous response. The banks will operate in rural areas the same way that they operate in urban areas. What needs to happen is we need a situation where we change significantly the rules of the game in rural areas.
No, it is not disingenuous, Xolani. I disagree with you. Mm-hmm. The point we are making is that the banks, in any case, do not service poor areas in the country in the manner in which we would expect them to do. We are inviting them, we're working with them to try and do so. But the point and the reality we are making is that, like the Deputy Minister Joe Phaahla points out, that there is a culture of predator taking over of land, property, and rendering even more people vulnerable. So if even what they have now as a form of security, where they live, is now given out for almost in no time, people who are, as the report itself says by Busi, but also the manner in which capital must flow into rural areas. Why is it dependent on the ability of that land to be taken over, as collateral implies, that you can take that and move it away.
Isn't that the general practice, that everywhere you go, banks will require collateral?
No,
and if you
no.
go to rural areas,
Yes.
what collateral exists? Because